Wuthering Waves is a free-to-play open-world action RPG, currently available on PC, Android, iOS, and now on the PlayStation 5. The Wuthering Waves development team has taken the feedback it's received over the past few months seriously, and players were able to get a taste of the new direction the game is taking in the Wuthering Waves 2.0 update, which showcases the changes to the game so drastically it almost feels like a relaunch. There are huge improvements that have pushed Wuthering Waves beyond what people expected based on the way things were at release. From the storytelling, to the music, to the combat animations, the structure of the exploration, the boss battles, and the introduction of new movement systems. Pretty much everything has improved, which has made this the best time to introduce the game to a new player base on the PlayStation 5. So in this video, I'll be breaking down all of the things you can do in Wuthering Waves 2.0. My main platform is the PC, and I usually use a combination of controller and mouse depending on what I'm doing. But for this review, the development team has offered to sponsor this video so I could play the 2.0 update on the PlayStation 5 and share my opinions on what I experienced on that platform. So if the game seems interesting to you after watching this video, click the link in the description and give it a download, since you can earn yourself some additional rewards that will help you get started once you log into the game. This review of Wuthering Waves 2.0 will still be relevant to anyone that wants to play on any platform though, but it will be from the perspective of someone playing on the PS5, using a controller as the only input device. While playing on the PlayStation 5, I completed all of the story content, finished the endgame modes with full rewards, and completed the hardest boss challenges currently in the game, using characters that have no sequence upgrades, but my main damage-focused characters are using their signature weapons. Everything shown is from my own personal free-to-play account, so it should be relatable for people that have been playing the game since launch and have skipped obtaining a few of the characters like I have. But anyone starting Wuthering Waves for the first time should have no problems completing all of the main content in the game. But when it comes to being able to fully complete all of the endgame activities, that should be considered a long-term goal after improving your characters and account. There are additional paid options and packages like battle passes and currency subscriptions that can make obtaining characters and materials more comfortable. But despite the fact that this is a gacha game, these extras are optional and they are not necessary in order to enjoy playing the game. Before the PS5 version was released, a lot of people were concerned about the account linking process and if there will be any restrictions. Thankfully, it was a smooth process, with clear instructions informing me of the linking and sign-in procedure. Your Wuthering Waves account is shared between all platforms, so if you started playing the game on PC or mobile, it's possible to continue your progress on PS5. But one thing to be aware of is if you were previously using a third-party login like Google, Apple, or Facebook to play the game, you will need to bind an email to your account directly to enable cross-platform progression. For the PlayStation 5 platform specifically, if you plan on using an existing Wuthering Waves account, your PSN account region will need to match the server your characters are on. So if a character is on the Europe server, you will need a European PSN account in order to continue playing that account on the PlayStation 5. The full details of this are on a FAQ that the development team have prepared, so if you run into any issues, then it's worth checking there for help. I'll post a link to it in the description of this video. On the PlayStation 5 version, it's also possible to play co-op with players on other platforms without the need for a PlayStation Plus subscription. And you also have the option to isolate yourself from other platforms too. So if you only want to play with players on the PlayStation network, then that's an option. While playing Wuthering Waves, I was using the normal PS5 and not the Pro version, so I wouldn't be able to tell you what the performance was like on the PS5 Pro. But from my experience, the normal PS5 handled the game pretty well, but not perfectly. There were a few rare instances of frame drops and crashes that didn't impact the overall experience, but are still worth mentioning. This could happen when the animations from multiple characters overlapped during combat while in the overworld, or when playing for an extended period of time. It's not something that caused any issues for me, but there is still room for improvement as the PS5 version continues to be optimized. The mobile and PC versions had similar issues at launch, but since the optimization has been an ongoing effort with Wuthering Waves, those platforms have had big improvements. So I expect the PS5 version to become smoother over time. The first chapter of Wuthering Waves takes place across the post-apocalyptic region of Huanglong and the sci-fi themed Black Shores. But the 2.0 storyline introduces the second chapter of the game, which takes us to Rinascita, a place that is known as the Land of Echoes because of the citizens' ability to coexist with echoes and use them in their daily lives. For those of you that are unfamiliar with what echoes are, they're a replication of the creatures that roam the world, which can be absorbed after defeating them in battle. They can then be summoned during combat or equipped onto your characters to increase their stats. But in Rinascita, echoes are seen as a divine blessing and live alongside people, aiding them in their daily lives. The story begins with the main character, Rover, receiving an invitation to visit Rinascita in order to attend the Carnival, an upcoming festival that's taking place in the city of Ragusa after it was suspended for the past few years. Even though you're visiting Rinascita to attend the Carnival, your main goal is to seek an audience with Rinascita's Guardian Sentinel in order to gather information for your own purposes. But even though Rinascita seems very festive and welcoming on the surface, you'll begin to learn about its history that the people in power would rather keep hidden. Even though the 2.0 storyline is a continuation of the overall main story, it's still self-contained enough to be enjoyed standalone. So a new feature was introduced that allows players to jump straight into Rinascita to enjoy the latest content. After starting the game and completing up to Chapter 1 Act 3, which is roughly an hour or two into the main story, you'll have the option to use the main quest fast track system to travel to Rinascita and take part in all of the new content. So both new and returning players will still be able to start with version 2.0 story. You will have a better understanding of all of the events if you play through the first chapter entirely before continuing into Rinascita, but it's not a necessity since you can always go back and complete the first chapter later. In addition to the main story, there are new daily quests, new side quests, new exploration quests that help players learn more about the region, and companion stories that give you the chance to learn more about the newly introduced playable characters. Some of the story-related content takes place in instanced areas that allow for more focused storytelling and set-piece moments. But that doesn't mean that the open world doesn't have its own set pieces and environments that permanently change based on your progress for a particular quest line. There are even quests that encourage the use of particular echoes in order to complete the specific objectives. So while completing the various story-related puzzles and challenges, you are presented with new experiences. Wuthering Waves is very dialogue heavy though, which is something that is common in story-driven RPGs. So there will be some conversations that can start to feel like they're overstaying their welcome at times, especially if you want to get back to the gameplay. There is a skip feature, but I'd still recommend paying attention to them since they are well presented, and surprisingly the quality is on par with many traditional retail RPGs. Another concern is something that many dialogue-heavy RPGs struggle with, and that is conversations that take place while walking. Some games will force you to walk at a slower pace until you listen to the full conversation, which can be annoying at times. But there are other games that will let you move unrestricted, which leads to you unintentionally cutting off the dialogue since you move faster than the pace of the conversation. This is what happens in Wuthering Waves, and I'm honestly not sure what the best solution for it would be. I intentionally walk slower when I notice these scenes happening, so I can hear all of the dialogue, but that does slow down the pace and ruins the immersion, but it's a pretty minor issue overall. However, one of the major things that have improved with the story is the character interaction. In the first chapter of the game, the characters were understandably fascinated by the main character, but it became a bit overbearing at times. In Rinascita, the newly introduced characters will travel alongside you and aid you in your journey, but they see you as an equal since they have no idea of your importance. So the characters seem much more confident in their own positions and have a very strong presence during cutscenes. It's possible to focus on the main story and play it from start to finish, but the challenges and side activities that can be found in the open world are also worth your time. Our journey in 2.0 begins in Ragusa, a city that seems to be heavily influenced by Italian culture. This is the location that you'll be constantly returning to throughout the story-related content, but it also has a few shops and facilities that you'll make use of to craft new weapons or to buy items using a Rinascita-specific currency that you can find while exploring. In 2.0, Wuthering Waves has a more streamlined and focused approach to exploration, with clear objectives and goals for you to do, but without completely removing the discoverability aspect that can make well-made open worlds feel more engaging. With Rinascita, KURO Games have managed to strike a nice balance of objective-driven goals and the freedom to explore. The various puzzles, collectibles, and combat challenges that you can take part in are easily accessible and can be found within the new Exploration Progress menu. Each subregion has their own selection of objectives that unlock additional rewards once the completion percentage reaches specific tiers. And even though the majority of the optional challenges are displayed in the tracker, these objectives can still be found while you explore the world for yourself. So using the tracker isn't necessary if you want to roam the world and find things on your own. It does help to keep track of your current exploration progress, but just keep in mind that there are more rewards and objectives than the ones that are displayed, so you'll still need to keep an eye out for those. With the release of Rinascita, they've managed to improve a lot of the drawbacks that were present in the previous region that was available at launch. The map is more dense, so there's less empty space, and there are a lot of enemies in the overworld that tend to move in larger groups, which makes battles more enjoyable. The majority of the enemy types introduced into Rinascita are new. Some of them work together in order to take you down, and there are even mimic treasure chests that can surprise you at times if you fall for their bait. These new echoes introduced new set bonuses into the game, so a lot of my exploration time went into echo hunting, just so I could build up my characters. Certain echoes can also be used to assist with your exploration or to complete various puzzles and challenges. One of the new exploration focus echoes is the gondola. This echo can be used to travel across the various waterways in Rinascita and can even be used to scale waterfalls to reach new locations easily. Another exploration echo is the wing ray. If you aim your grappler to wing ray, you'll be able to link yourself to it while it carries you upwards, which makes it easier to gain some extra height before flying. Wuthering Waves already has a high mobility parkour system to make it easy to get around the world. And in Rinascita, the map is filled with the previously introduced White Cat's Blessing pickups that can increase your sprint speed. But in version 2.0, they've introduced a completely new way to travel, and that is the ability to fly, which has become a game changer for exploration. Flying did take a bit of getting used to at first, but once I adjusted to the controls and increased my base flight stamina so I could boost for longer, flying felt much smoother and easier to use, which made getting around the map quick and made me wish that flying was available everywhere in the world, rather than just the newly added Rinascita region. Flying has its own stamina system that's independent of the gliding stamina, so even if I ran out of flight time, I could switch to my glider and slowly descend to the ground. And since it only took a few seconds for flight to recharge, I could get myself back up into the air quickly. It's not just exploration that flying is used for, it's also used during specific points in the story, and it's also used to complete various flight-related challenges in the open world. During these challenges, you'll need to enter a wind trail that automatically follows the direction of the wind, but you'll need to control your flight to stay on course and pass through various rings that will earn you points to increase your final score. There are a decent variety of puzzles and challenges that can be found while exploring the world. I won't go through all of them since it would be more fun for you to discover them for yourselves, but the Echo Illusions and the Dream Patrols were some of the activities that stood out the most to me. Dream Patrol style challenges were introduced in a previous update, but in Rinascita these challenges are more fleshed out and are a core part of the exploration experience. In these combat-focused challenges, you'll need to complete the battles while satisfying the additional conditions in order to receive all of the rewards. These additional conditions can range from maintaining the required battle rating for a specific period of time, and others that may require that you parry enemies a specific number of times in order to break their weapon enhancement. After finding all of the Dreamscape battles within a sub-region, a special boss will be unlocked, and you'll be able to challenge it to potentially obtain a new echo. These echoes are improved versions of existing world boss echoes that have new attacks when used in battle and new additional passive traits that activate when they're equipped, which makes their enhancements much easier to maintain. In Echo Challenge Illusion, the environment around you warps and puts your character into a bit of a dreamlike state during the challenge, and I could never really know what to expect once one began. My favorite one involved completing a flying challenge alongside Lorelei, while incredibly relaxing music played in the background. At first, I assumed that the world would feel stagnant once I completed all of the available challenges and activities, but I was pretty satisfied by the time I completed everything and wanted to focus more on upgrading my characters and preparing for Endgame and the reoccurring combat events. A few of the challenges in the game are what would be considered endgame, and they may incentivize or require heavily invested characters or multiple teams. After the implementation of the Rinascita region, a few of these challenges received some new updates. The first of those being the tactical hologram battles. These fights are considered the pinnacle of Wuthering Waves and take existing boss enemies and increase their level of challenge by giving them multiple tiers to fight through with new movesets and various battle conditions that could help or hinder your performance and survivability. The Rinascita region introduced two new hologram battles, the Fallacy of No Return and the Sentry Construct. These fights are challenging, and some characters may be at a disadvantage when fighting them since elemental disadvantages are still at play. But depending on the boss, certain characters' gameplay mechanics may give them an advantage. On the hardest difficulty, without using food or items, it did take roughly 30 minutes worth of attempts before I got my first win for both Fallacy of No Return and Sentry Construct. But thankfully, restarting was made easy due to the fact that you have an option to restart the battle and revive and heal your party members, so you can give the fight another try if you make a mistake. But there is a bit of a punishment though, since if your characters die, it will reset their energy gain between attempts, so you'll be starting again with no forte or ultimate energy, which could lead to a more difficult attempt. This wouldn't be too much of a problem, but the delay between restarts can be a bit unfair, since the bosses can still hit you while the restart menus are being displayed, so you can end up losing a character after you've chosen to reset a fight, which can lead to unnecessary resource loss. You can still attempt to dodge during this time, but if you get hit from behind by the boss while it's off camera, there's not much you can really do. It's not a major issue, but it's something you should be aware of if you want to save your resources between attempts. But overall, the fights were pretty fun, even if they can become punishing at times. The Tower of Adversity is a reoccurring endgame mode which requires multiple characters if you want to get all of the rewards. Each tower has its own elemental advantages or disadvantages, and with the release of a new character, these advantages are usually in their favor. It did seem like the 2.0 tower enemies had a noticeable increase in health, but thanks to the fact that I had the new character Carlotta, things did go smoothly since her damage type had the advantage. My long-term goal is to build a unique team for each element. I have 4 of the elements covered so far, but since my teams share some characters, I still have a lot of gaps to fill, which can make allocating characters for the tower feel a bit like a puzzle, since each character has a limited amount of uses. There were a few combat-focused events in the 2.0 update, but the one that stood out to me the most was the co-op event. This event was broken into multiple difficulty tiers that unlocked over time, and it felt a bit like a mini dungeon. Even though the event did have co-op enabled, it was still possible to play it solo, so co-op isn't something you're forced into. But since Wuthering Waves is crossplay, I played the event with some friends that were playing on the PC while I was on the PS5. After selecting our characters and an event-specific echo at the start of the quest, our goal was to progress through multiple rooms and defeat the enemies within them before reaching the boss at the end, which is what gave this event a bit of a dungeon crawler feel. Since there were only a few difficulty levels, the experience was pretty short-lived. So in the future, I would love to see a more fleshed out mode like this with optional co-op enabled. In addition to everything else I previously mentioned, Update 2.0 introduced a variety of optimizations and systems, one of the main ones being the outfit system. A weapon skin system was introduced in a previous update, but now we finally have character outfit customization. This update provides a free outfit for the character Sanhua through an event, which everyone should be able to make use of since Sanhua is obtainable for free. And there is also a paid outfit and a weapon skin for Jinchi that changes her appearance and attack effects. Since I know there are many people that want to support a free-to-play game that they enjoy playing in some way, but they don't want to directly spend money on gacha or loot boxes, then outfits are a nice option for that. There's just one paid option at the moment, but hopefully in the future they'll release more outfits so people can get one for their favorite characters. This update also added the option to change between the male or female main character, and they added a portable synthesis option within the main menu, so we no longer need to travel to a town in order to merge our resources. Immersion mode is another new option they added that allows you to hide the UI during gameplay. This is a feature that I love as a content creator, but it's not something that will be used by everyone. This seems to be the first iteration of it, but it will require some additional fine-tuning, since some of the icons are still visible in the top left corner, and the 3-hour playtime warning still scrolls across the top of the screen. It's not a major issue, but it can be annoying when you're actually trying to record gameplay. If you're interested in playing Wuthering Waves, or if you previously tried the game and stopped playing in the earlier updates, 2.0 is the point where I can confidently say that the game is ready to play and worth your time. And even if you're not a fan of gacha systems in games, I'd say Wuthering Waves is still worth trying, so you can at least judge what the game is like for yourself. Since the barrier to entry and the gameplay restrictions in many newer gacha games is not as big as some people would assume. Gameplay-wise, it's a fun action RPG that has some solid combat mechanics and gradual progression that can start off feeling slow, but eventually you'll start to notice the improvements to your power and overall performance in combat as you really start to learn your characters. There are some battles that will be challenging and you'll most likely fail on your first few attempts, but it's usually something you can overcome once you improve your equipment and start understanding the mechanics and movesets of your enemies. Wuthering Waves hasn't even reached its first anniversary yet, so it's still early days for the game, but based on the quality of the content and the pace of the improvements it's had, I'm looking forward to what they have coming in the future. So if you're interested in giving Wuthering Waves a try, it's available on PlayStation 5, PC, Android and iOS, and you can click the link in the description to find out how you can download it and get started. I'll be making some more videos about action games and RPGs, so don't forget to subscribe if you want to be the first to know when a new video is available. But until I make those videos, here's another one that you might find interesting.